G'day and welcome to Reality Check. I'm your host, Ross Coulthart. And before we get into answering your questions today, I just wanted to observe, has anyone noticed that NASA has admitted there's probably life on Mars? I just thought this news article came and went with barely a mention by any of the mainstream networks, but NASA in the last 12 hours has acknowledged that a sample collected by NASA's Perseverance Mars rover from an ancient dry riverbed in Jezero crater could preserve evidence of ancient microbial life. It was taken from a rock named Chiyava Falls last year, and the sample, called Sapphire Canyon, contains potential biosignatures, according to a paper that was published Wednesday in the journal Nature. And a biosignature is a substance or structure that might have a biological origin, but requires more data or further study. It does worry me that it's taken them a year or so to announce all of this. I guess they were waiting for publication in Nature. But look, this is significant. Even though people might yawn and go, they've done this before, they've said this before, this is significant. I'm told there's more to come. And can I firstly say hello to my colleague and friend, Megan Orada. Megan, hello and good morning.
Ross, hi, how are you?
Very, very well. Very, very well.
Did
I'm
you catch
sorry
up
to
on
hear about...
any sleep?
Not very much at all. Not very much at all. Can I just say, I mean, whatever one thinks of the politics of people, I just think it's outrageous that a commentator on social media, Charlie Kirk, has been murdered. It's a terribly sad day, and I just hope the temperature gets turned down a bit in America, a country we all love. And let's make sure that we can discuss issues properly, rationally, and well without temperature.
Thank you, Ross. Well said. I absolutely agree.
So fire away, Megan. What's the first question of the day?
All right, firstly, I'm going to get your reaction to this. Friend of the show, UAP James, he posted this on X. Pentagon officials decline comment on Hellfire missile UFO. Quote, "We have nothing for you." Now, he got this from ABC News. Their senior Pentagon reporter did this video report last night. The anchors were kind of giggling and laughing when they reported it, which is a little disrespectful, but that's another story. I want your reaction to the Pentagon statement, "We have nothing for you."
Okay, just to give people some background, obviously in the hearing, Representative Eric Burleson, out of nowhere, out of left field, he tabled a video allegedly captured by US military drones off the east coast of Yemen on the 30th of October 2024. And the footage shows an unidentified object described by him as a small orb or a cylindrical object being targeted and struck by what is an AGM-114 Hellfire missile that was fired from an MQ-9 Reaper drone. Now, a lot of people at the hearing, they testified that the video raises questions about whether it's advanced non-human technology. The suggestion is that it might be anomalous. And the reason for this is because the object does appear to survive the impact unscathed, and it continues moving. Now, I just want to go through this in some detail because we've had a lot of questions from people. I'm still reserving judgment on whether the video is in and of itself an anomalous object. And by anomalous, obviously the possibility that it might be something of NHI origin, non-human intelligence technology, in other words. The video's in black and white. It's probably from the MQ-9's sensor systems, and it shows a small, bright object moving steadily across the water at a consistent speed. There's another drone tracking the object while a second off screen launches the Hellfire missile, which enters the frame from the left as a fast-moving streak. When it hits, at around about 20-25 seconds, the missile appears to bounce off or deflect without detonating, which causes some debris or fragments to scatter. The object deforms slightly, tumbles, and then sheds or some smaller pieces appear to come out of it. It maintains its trajectory and continues flying. It lasts about 50 seconds and ends without showing the object's final fate. And it's basically, the big question is this anomalous? I think it's unusual that a Hellfire missile, which is, a massive missile, an incredibly powerful missile, could hit an object and it observes the kinetic energy in a particular way, but nothing much happens. Let's talk about the MQ-9 Reaper. It weighs 100 pounds. It's designed for anti-armor or ground targets. It's not usually used in an air-to-air role, but that's not unprecedented. One of the speculations is that it might not have been configured for proximity detonation, which could explain the bounce effect. Maybe it grazed or kinetically impacted without full warhead detonation, is what one person's told me. Now, the interesting thing about it is the UAP does appear subsonic. It's not going particularly fast. There's no visible propulsion signatures or evasive maneuvers. It maintains a straight path pre-impact, tumbles post-strike, sheds something, and I guess you could say its behaviour is consistent with some kind of damage, but it's not totally destroyed. Another expert I've spoken to told me that parallax from the drone's movement and low resolution may exaggerate the object's speed or shape, making it appear more orb-like at times, but it does look like it's a cylinder. So, is it authentic? So, the best brains I've spoken to have told me it does appear to be authentic military vision. And maybe the Pentagon doesn't want to comment one way or the other because they just don't want to admit the capabilities of the sensor systems of their MQ-9 Reaper drones. Representative Burleson can't say, because he doesn't know where it came from, the origin of the drone. He says he was dead dropped the video, which means we have no idea of its provenance. Moreover, the metadata has been scrubbed to remove classified sensor data. There is an independent review underway, but as you've said, Megan, the Pentagon and US Central Command have declined to comment, and they've not denied its legitimacy, which is significant. It's also significant that no major media outlets have debunked it yet as fabricated. A lot of people are just tying themselves up in knots, arguing about whether it's a real anomalous object or not. My best answer, when I'm basically flummoxed, I go to Billy Kryak. Billy Kryak's got a great Twitter feed site. And Megan, I've sent you the link for this. I'm sure Billy wouldn't mind if we used a section of his analysis. He's got a great Twitter feed at Billy Kryzak. My apologies, Billy Kryzak. His Twitter feed is called Pro Pixel Video Analysis and Research. And he believes that there is something odd about the object. In the video that he's done, you can actually see what appear to be, but maybe it's a parallax effect, orb-shaped objects coming out of the back of the object after it's hit. They're momentarily sort of moving around, and then they appear to move into a track in parallel behind the slightly hit object as it continues its track. That's not consistent with a balloon, and that's Billy's argument, that this is not consistent with how a balloon would behave. If you hit a balloon with the kinetic energy of a 100-pound Hellfire missile, that balloon would not be there anymore, even though its detonation never happened. So I think we should reserve judgment about whether it is an anomalous object, but certainly there are, according to Billy, anomalous features of the way that object behaves after it's hit. But frankly, it'll take better brains than mine to reach a definitive conclusion about whether the explanation is prosaic or not. The fact that it was engaging off Yemen suggests, of course, it might have been some kind of Houthi drone or balloon. We just don't know. I don't think the balloon explanation washes based on what Billy Kryzak has said here. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I will play a little clip from Billy's analysis right here.
All right. So is this a balloon or not? I really don't think it is. And all we have to do is look at the kinetic picture, right? The kinetic energy involved at the exchange that happens between the Hellfire missile and the object itself. When this thing hits, if this was a balloon, balloons have very little mass, right? They are buoyant. So they just don't weigh that much because they can only weigh as much as the air that it would, of the space of the air that it would occupy. So that being said, if this was a balloon, the Hellfire missile would most likely just pass right through it. It would pop or rip it open, and there would be very little deflection of the Hellfire just because you're not dealing with enough mass to really change the direction of the missile. Not as fast as this happens, right? It's almost instantaneously. It is instantaneously. And then when you look at the object, when it takes the hit from the Hellfire, it's that Hellfire, all the energy in it is transferring into the object, and it really shifts it hard. In fact, it shifts it so hard over that the camera system loses lock on it.
Okay, our next question is coming in from email from Shannon. She's saying, "Hi, Megan and Ross. I had a blast watching the UAP hearing with you two on NewsNation. What a hearing. Definitely a win for awareness and transparency. The video of the Hellfire missile bouncing off or maybe just whiffing past the UAP blew me away. But honestly, the bigger surprise for me was this. Why are we even shooting a UAP in the first place? That feels a bit like picking a fight with Mike Tyson just to see what happens. If these things are as advanced as they look, taunting them doesn't exactly seem like a sound strategy. Why is this not a hot topic? Call me crazy, but if it ever comes down to a shuffle, I'm putting my money on team UAP. Cheers to you both, Shan."
Okay, well, a lot hangs on whether the object was prosaically explainable. Maybe because it was in the Gulf of Yemen, maybe because it was an active war zone, the US warships quite legitimately took the view that this was something that needed to be engaged because it was near US warships and they had full authorization in a war zone to engage any unknown object that did not deviate from its path if advised so by US warships. You can see a possibility here that there is indeed a possible prosaic explanation. But yes, I do think if this object is anomalous, and why the hell are we engaging it? And I think if you've been watching Reality Check, you'd know that in the past we've raised concern about this because we know from Jake Barber in his interview with me in January that the United States, in a facility he calls the Range, which is a secure area of military aerospace in the continental United States, there's been collaboration with a private aerospace contractor to down objects that have been summoned, UAPs that have been summoned by psionic operators, which are then engaged with HPMs, high pulse microwaves. That's a problem. I don't understand why we are. If these are a non-human intelligence, why are we acting offensively and violently against something that is highly advanced, technologically advanced, and not at that time representing any threat to any US personnel or entity? I guess we just don't know the answer. But yes, I agree with you. Philosophically, it's wrong. And why on earth would we or should we engage with something non-human in principle if it's not posing any threat? I guess the argument would be we want to retrieve their technology, to be sinister and cynical about it. But I do think it's very sad that if indeed this is a contact with a non-human intelligence, why the hell are we shooting at it?
All right, our next question is from Sentinel on X. "Hey Ross, after the hearing, Rep. Luna said they would look at subpoenaing hostile witnesses like Kirkpatrick and Gaffney and also giving immunity to witnesses. How likely is that to happen? And could it happen in a public setting so the truth finally comes out?"
I think it is going to happen. I know there's been talk about it for a while. Frankly, I don't know why it hasn't happened before now. I freely admit, and I owe the witnesses an apology. I went into yesterday's hearing with the expectation that it was going to be a dog and pony show, another complete waste of time where members asked very ill-conceived questions, witnesses were ho-hum. I thought there was some very interesting revelations yesterday at the hearing. I think that it served a very useful purpose, that witnesses who had seen, experienced unusual objects over secure US military facilities were able to give their evidence in the way that they did. And I thought George Knapp was an absolute knockout. I've been waiting for years to hear the details of his evidence that he obtained from the former Soviet Union. He was the possessor of a massive scoop of documents, and I'm looking forward to going through those documents at some stage and seeing what's in them. Yes, it is interesting to hear the details of the 10 years of study that were done by the Soviet Union into the UFO mystery. And the fact that the Russians particularly are continuing to take an active interest in this area says an awful lot, and frankly spits in the eye of those who continue to treat this subject matter with contempt. Well, enough said. I think I really don't have any more to add.
All right, Marvin sent us an email. He's saying, Dear Ross, if the CIA won't allow this subject to be investigated and exposed to the disinfectant of sunshine, then how about the Congress cuts their funding until they do? The same with all SAP silos. Shut off the money for anything that our representatives in Congress don't know what the money is for. Hold out until the agencies come clean. My 2 cents, Marvin.
Perchance to dream. My God, wouldn't that be amazing if Congress suddenly developed a spine? For the life of me, and I keep on saying this, and a lot of people who read my comments, they think that I'm very naive. I just keep on citing the US Constitution, which gives Congress the power to oversight all expenditure inside executive government. And that includes the Pentagon and the intelligence community, which we know is expending billions of dollars unaccounted for in its black budgets. I don't know why it's so hard for Congress to stand up and say, guys, you're not getting any money. You're not getting any money at all until we see what's going on. And frankly, it's absolutely inexcusable that, as Eric Burleson and Committee Chair Representative Anna Paulina Luna said on multiple occasions, there's been obstruction by unnamed anonymous staffers along the way to stop the committee from being able to ask questions, to call certain witnesses. The fact that security clearances are being denied for witnesses to give evidence. Look, in the Constitution, Congress is sovereign. The government of the people, for the people, by the people. This is such a fundamental concept of American democracy, and it was drummed into me at law school as a young student. I'm envious of the American Constitution. It's a beautiful document because it makes it very, very clear that power resides in Congress. There is something fundamentally wrong with America right now, that executive government is so unaccountable, and that Congress is treated with such contempt by the defense and intelligence community. I made mention in the hearing commentary of the great work that was done by the Project for Government Oversight, recommending changes in a Supreme Court ruling which essentially gives the Defense Department and the intelligence community control of the vetting of security clearances for people who give evidence to Congress. There needs to be an independent body that makes those assessments. Frankly, all along the way here, since David Grush's interview with me in 2023, the real story is that there's been hamstrung attempts by Congress to actually properly monitor and do its job to scrutinise executive power. The Congress is being played. Yes, yesterday's hearing was important. Yes, witnesses gave very important and crucial evidence, but the wrong witnesses are being called. We really do need to hear from the first-hand legacy program witnesses who are there in the wings wanting to give evidence, but who are not being given adequate protections because the whistleblower disclosure laws are being held up in Congress by corrupt congressional representatives who are taking the coin of the national security complex and basically refusing to pass laws that would adequately protect whistleblowers and give them the power to give evidence in Congress with impunity from intervention by the executive government. This is the issue. The issue here is, are you in America going to allow yourselves to have a situation where anonymous people in the government are attempting to control what the Congress is allowed to know and what you, the American people, are allowed to see? This is such a fundamental struggle, and this is why the giggling by people on ABC News when the video comes up for discussion is such a reprehensible act by mainstream media who really should understand the importance of the separation of powers. Congress has the power to oversight, period. And as your commentator says, Megan, there really shouldn't be any attempt by executive government. The power's all the wrong way. Who the flaming heck are these people in government who are basically saying that Congress doesn't have the authority to review parts of government? Bugger them. I fully agree, and I think Congress should be turning off the tap. The big question, though, with whether or not these people get subpoenaed, whether they get named and shamed and exposed, is whether James Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, gives the subcommittee that Anna Paulina Luna is part of and chairperson of the power to issue these subpoenas. There's a lot of game playing inside Congress, and there's a big question mark over whether Representative Comer is going to give that power to that subcommittee. Will he, for example, the obvious thing to do would be to subpoena good man, Admiral Tom Wilson, who's the person who's named in the Davis-Wilson documents, which started a lot of the speculation about this crash retrieval reverse engineering program operating in secret inside the US government. I think good men like James Lukatsky need to be called. Jay Stratton. Let's call them under oath in public hearing. And you know what will happen? If we suggest that, there'll be some squawking person from inside the national security establishment going, oh, you can't do that. We'll be revealing national security secrets. Okay, well, that's the point. Congress needs to put whoever it is in executive government that is constraining this evidence from coming forward on the back foot. They need to explain where the authority is coming from to argue that this information needs to be kept secret. Because officially, the government denies any knowledge of extraterrestrial engagement with this planet, which is patently untrue, and I think it's a misleading term. I noticed my friend Christopher Sharp today on Liberation Times has pointed out that there has been a refusal by the Pentagon to make the same denial when the term non-human intelligence is used. I think what's happening here is the Pentagon spin doctor, PR woman, psyops operator, Susan Go, is basically using sophistry and words to basically disguise the Pentagon's position. I suspect there is a Presidential Executive Action Directive, which basically, Emergency Action Directive, a PED, which was issued many, many decades ago, which is being used as the basis by executive government to continue to pull the wool over the public's eyes. What Congress needs to do is exert its authority and power. Frankly, at the moment, that's not going to happen.
All right, we will go to our next question from Alex Katz on X. Appreciate you, Ross. Hypothetically, if someone thought they had uncovered the identity of the SES-2 Air Force gatekeeper redacted in the signal chat posted by Chris Mellon, what might be a good next course of action?
You could contact me discreetly and let me know. I wouldn't advise naming someone who's clearly a confidential source to Christopher Mellon just for the fun of it, and I'm certainly not suggesting you would ever do that. I'm sure you would be responsible. Bottom line, if somebody in executive government is coming forward to Christopher Mellon confidentially and offering information, and you think you've figured out who it is, I don't think it's a good idea to name them. I'd certainly like to know who it is that you think it is, and you can contact me through realitycheck at newsnationnow.com or on encrypted proton mail at muckraker at protonmail.com. If you have your own proton mail address, it will be fully encrypted. Um, I would suggest and always advise, if you inadvertently come across the identity of somebody who may well be a source for somebody as good and as well as intentioned as Christopher Mellon, I would strongly suggest that you treat that with the respect and confidence that it deserves. But certainly happy to help you communicate that through to Chris to let him know how you figured that out.
All right, great. We have a comment from Nick. This was posted on our YouTube video from the 3.5 hour marathon hearing that you reacted to yesterday, Ross. Good day from Shell Harbor. Ross and Megan, love your work. It's important and exciting times, and we're grateful to have you and your team on the job. My question is, what follows disclosure? Do these UAP and entities know that we know now? And I wonder if it's going to make a difference to them. I can't imagine them just becoming normal.
What follows disclosure? Well, my friend and colleague Bryce Zabel and Richard Dolan have written a book called After Disclosure, which I recommend to everyone. And they poo-poo a lot of the speculation that there's going to be some kind of apocalyptic collapse of civilization. I think the people who would be most uncomfortable following disclosure would be the national security complex that I think, frankly, are sitting on their knowledge of non-human intelligence purely and simply, I think, because they're covering their behinds. I don't think there is going to be any huge ontological shock for most people following disclosure. I think if the government came out and said, yes, there is a non-human intelligence that's been engaging with this planet for a very, very long time, and yes, we've been able to confirm its existence, and yes, we've been able to retrieve technology and biologics, as David Grush asserts, I think there would be excitement. The public would probably be enthralled with the subject for a while, but I think we'd move on. And certainly, I don't see it as inevitable, as a lot of people in the national security establishment suggest to me, that the public outcry would be such that the government would then be forced into admitting what technology it has and what weapons it's been able to develop. I think the public are actually quite receptive to the idea that there's certain things that need to be protected on the basis of national security. And that's why, unpopularly, I take the view that there does need to be some respect for national security constraints on revealing how much the public knows. I'm not in favour of catastrophic disclosure, but what I do think is that if the government continues on the path it's running at the moment, with the completely implausible line from the dopey idiots at the Pentagon that there is no evidence of ETs, I think it's just going to blow up in their face. Sooner or later, somebody from inside the legacy program is going to go public with somebody like me and spill their guts. Do you really want that, Susan Goff? Seriously.
I don't think she does.
I just think you're a bunch of bloody idiots. I really do. I think you're utterly irresponsible. You're putting US national security on the line with your irresponsible arrogance and hubris. Have a look at yourselves. It's an obvious situation that people are talking to me and others from inside the legacy program. They are hovering with the decision as to whether or not they go public. I actually don't think it's a good idea they stick their necks on the altar and have them chopped off by you guys in a public display of exactly how much they know. I think it's better that executive government makes the decision at National Security Council level, where all of this is being run, administered, and concealed. And I think Marco Rubio is in a prime position now as Secretary of State and as National Security Advisor to help the President make a decision about disclosure. And I sincerely hope, and I know this discussion is happening in high circles, I sincerely hope that the right decision is made, because you do not have much time.
All right, we will do one more. This is an email from Chris. Hi, Ross, loving the show. Have you ever come across the Alaskan Black Pyramid? And if so, what's your thoughts on it? Would love to see you investigate its existence. Thanks.
I would love NewsNation to fly me to that particular part of Alaska. help me hire the crampons and the ropes and the climbing materials and the camera equipment, and we can go in there and have a damn good look. I've got coordinates, I've got locations, I know exactly where the alleged Alaska pyramid is, and I would love to go in there and have a look. And NewsNation's munificence and bloated budgets will hopefully one day take me there. Right now, at the moment, it's not a realistic prospect. I would dearly love to get more on the ground with our investigations into this phenomenon, into this mystery, and I'm sincerely hoping that at some stage we can do this kind of work, because there are a lot of people sharing a lot of information with people like myself, and I can tell you I am aware of allegations about a supposed pyramid, and it's one of those things I would just love to get on the ground and investigate. There's a lot more out there that I'm taking a very close interest in. I'm heading to Bolivia and Peru and Easter Island later on this year with a tour, and hopefully I'll be able to bring you a story from there about what I see and discover.
That's fantastic, Russ. We can't wait to see it. We are done with questions, but just a quick announcement for everybody. Reality Check is now wherever you listen to your podcast. So Apple, Spotify, we are there. So please subscribe to us there as well.
Oh, wow. So we're back on in podcast mode as well as online here on YouTube as well.
We are so back, baby.
So all they need to do is put Reality Check Ross Coulthart into the search engine, and it'll come up.
Absolutely. And just subscribe and more Ross for you.
More Ross. I might even listen to myself on my way to the gym today. If you do want to send us a question, you can contact us at realitycheck@newsnationnow.com. Lovely to speak to you. And look, thanks all of you for watching the hearing this week. The response, the audience numbers have been extraordinary. It's great to know people are so interested and engaged. Thank you very much, and thank you, Megan.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.